Hey guys, tonight we're taking a leisurely journey down the Nile River at sunset, traveling at the breathtaking speed of roughly 3 miles per hour while watching ancient Egypt drift slowly past your boat. From dodging the occasional irritated hippo to spending 6 hours traveling the distance you could walk in two, this is the story of humanity's most scenic traffic jam. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the deck of a wooden cargo boat, watching the sun begin its daily descent toward the western horizon, painting the Nile in shades of gold that would make modern photographers weep with envy. The year is roughly 1400 BCE, and you're traveling downstream from Thebes toward Memphis, a journey that will take you several days of the most relaxing transportation experience ever devised by humanity. Your boat is about 60 feet long, built from Lebanese cedar that still smells faintly of mountain forests, and constructed with the kind of patient craftsmanship that makes modern speedboats look like they were assembled by caffeinated teenagers. The hull is sealed with a mixture of pitch and resin that creates a waterproof barrier between you and the Nile, assuming the boat builders knew what they were doing, which they probably did since drowning was considered bad for business. The boat moves entirely at the mercy of the current, which flows north at a steady, hypnotic pace that makes watching grass grow seem exciting. Occasionally, the crew uses long wooden poles to push away from sandbanks or guide the boat around obstacles, but mostly they just stand around looking professionally competent while the river does all the work. The cargo hold is filled with grain jars, each one carefully sealed and labeled with hieroglyphic inventory marks that probably say things like barley, good quality, don't drop this one, and emmer wheat belongs to temple. Seriously, don't steal this. These jars represent months of farming work, carefully harvested and stored for transport to markets downstream, where people who don't grow their own food will trade other goods for the privilege of eating regularly. The sun hangs low in the western sky, casting long shadows across the water that transform every ripple into liquid gold. The light has that particular quality that only exists for about an hour each day, warm and honey-colored, making everything look like it was painted by someone who really understood the beauty of patient observation. On the eastern bank, you can see farmers working their fields in the blessed coolness of evening, using wooden plows pulled by oxen who look about as enthusiastic about agriculture as you'd expect. The irrigation channels catch and reflect the dying sunlight, creating a network of golden threads that connect the river to fields of green barley and emmer wheat. A group of children runs along the riverbank, trying to keep pace with your boat, and probably succeeding because your boat is moving at roughly the speed of a leisurely evening stroll. They wave and shout greetings in ancient Egyptian that likely translates to something like, "Hey, boat people, where are you going?" and "Can we have some of your food?" which are probably the same questions travelers have been getting from curious children for the past 4,000 years. The water itself is the color of café au lait, heavy with the fertile silt that makes Egypt possible. This isn't the clear blue water you'd find in mountain streams or tropical lagoons. This is working water, agricultural water, the kind of muddy brown liquid that grows civilizations and feeds empires, even if it doesn't photograph particularly well for modern tourism brochures. A pelican lands on the boat's prow with the confidence of someone who knows they're welcome, folds its impressive wings, and settles in for the ride. Ancient Egyptian boats often acquire these feathered passengers who understand that slow-moving vessels make excellent fishing platforms and mobile bird perches. The pelican surveys the water with professional interest, occasionally tilting its head to check for fish that might be worth the effort of actually hunting. The boat captain, a weather-beaten man whose skin has been turned to leather by decades of Nile sun and whose knowledge of river navigation was probably inherited from his father and grandfather before him, stands near the steering oar with the relaxed alertness of someone who knows every sandbank, current change, and seasonal hazard between Aswan and the Mediterranean Sea. He points out landmarks as you drift past them, speaking in the slow, measured cadence of someone who has told these same stories to countless passengers over the years. That temple complex on the western bank was built during the reign of Amenhotep III. The village clustered around those date palms has the best brewery between here and Memphis, and those limestone quarries have been providing building stone for Pharaoh's monuments since his grandfather was a young man. The evening breeze picks up slightly, creating gentle ripples on the water surface that catch and scatter the golden sunlight into millions of tiny mirrors. The boat rocks almost imperceptibly with the rhythm of the current, a motion so subtle and constant that you stop noticing it after a few minutes, like the heartbeat of the river itself. A fisherman in a small papyrus boat pulls slowly along the eastern shore, checking nets that were set earlier in the day. His movements are economical and practiced, the result of years spent reading the river's moods and understanding where fish like to gather during different seasons and times of day. He raises a hand in greeting as your cargo boat passes, a gesture of professional courtesy between people who make their living on the same water. The papyrus marshes along the riverbank rustle softly in the evening breeze, creating a whispered conversation between wind and plant that sounds like nature commenting quietly on the day's events. Somewhere in those green depths, ibises are settling in for the night, their white feathers gradually disappearing into the shadows as they find comfortable roosting spots among the tall reeds. On the western bank, a small temple dedicated to Sobek, the crocodile god, sits half-hidden behind date palms and acacia trees. Smoke rises from the evening incense offerings, a thin gray line against the deepening sky that carries prayers and requests for safe passage on the river. The priests understand that travelers appreciate divine insurance policies, especially when sharing the water with actual crocodiles. Speaking of which, you spot what might be a crocodile log floating near the far shore, motionless in the way that only crocodiles and actual logs can manage. The boat captain notices your attention and chuckles, explaining that this particular stretch of river is home to several well-known crocodile residents who have learned that cargo boats are generally too large to be interesting prey, but small fishing vessels are worth investigating, just in case. The cargo boat's crew consists of 4 men who have worked together for so many seasons that they communicate mostly through glances, hand gestures, and the occasional grunt of professional understanding.
One tends the steering oar, another watches for navigational hazards, and the other two are available for pushing off from sandbanks, adjusting cargo tie-downs, or dealing with any unexpected excitement that might arise. Unexpected excitement on the Nile usually involves running aground on hidden sandbars, encountering unusually aggressive hippopotamuses, or discovering that one of your grain jars has developed a leak and is slowly filling the boat with premium barley. None of these problems is immediately dangerous, but all require the kind of patient problem solving that can turn a 3-day journey into a 5-day adventure. The sun continues its steady descent toward the western hills, painting the sky in gradually deepening shades of orange and pink that reflect perfectly in the calm water surface. The entire world seems wrapped in golden light that makes even the most mundane sights look mystical and ancient, which they are, literally. A group of women appears at the water's edge, filling clay jars with river water for household use. They move with the efficient grace of people who perform this same task every evening, balancing the heavy jars on their heads and shoulders with practiced ease. Their colorful linen dresses and jewelry catch the fading light, creating brief flashes of blue and gold against the brown earth of the riverbank. The boat drifts past a small dock where several fishing boats are moored for the night, their nets spread out for drying and repair. An elderly man sits cross-legged on the dock, mending a tear in his fishing net with the patient concentration of someone who knows that careful repair work now means successful fishing tomorrow. His hands move automatically through the familiar motions of knot tying and mesh repair. The aroma of evening cooking fires begins to drift across the water, carrying scents of baking bread, roasting fish, and the distinctive smell of duck fat that suggests someone is preparing a feast for either a celebration or the arrival of important guests. These kitchen aromas mix with the natural scents of the river, creating an olfactory landscape that speaks of human settlement and agricultural abundance. A flight of ibises passes overhead, their wings catching the last strong rays of sunlight as they navigate toward their evening roosting grounds in the papyrus marshes. Their calls echo across the water, wild and ancient sounds that have been part of the Nile's evening symphony since long before humans decided to build boats and travel the river for trade and transportation. The boat captain points ahead to a bend in the river where the channel splits around a large island covered with date palms and acacia trees. He explains that the western channel is deeper and safer for cargo boats, while the eastern channel is preferred by fishermen because the shallower water and overhanging vegetation create better fishing conditions, assuming you don't mind the occasional low branch trying to knock you out of your boat. As the boat rounds the island, a small shrine becomes visible among the trees, dedicated to Hapi, the god of the Nile flood. Fresh offerings of bread and beer sit before a modest statue, evidence that someone recently made the journey to this peaceful spot to request favorable conditions for the coming flood season. The shrine's location, surrounded by flowing water and green vegetation, perfectly embodies the abundance that Hapi brings to Egypt each year. The western sky deepens to rich orange and red, with the first hints of purple appearing along the horizon. The sun sits now lower, a golden disk that you can look at directly without squinting, its light creating a shimmering path across the water that leads directly to your boat, like a divine highway made of liquid gold and reflected fire. A night heron stands motionless in the shallows near the bank, demonstrating the kind of perfect patience that make them successful fishers. Its reflection in the still water creates a perfect mirror image of the bird, doubling its presence and adding to the dreamlike quality of the evening light. Occasionally, it shifts slightly, adjusting its position for optimal fish spotting, but otherwise remains as still as a carved statue. The boat's wooden hull creaks gently with the movement of the water, a rhythmic sound that becomes part of the river's evening music, along with the lap of small waves against the banks, the rustle of wind through papyrus reeds, and the distant calls of various birds settling in for the night. These sounds create a natural symphony that has been playing along the Nile for thousands of years. One of the crew members starts preparing the evening meal, unpacking bread, dried fish, onions, and a jar of beer that has been cooling in the river water since midday. The food is simple but satisfying, the kind of meal that tastes particularly good when eaten while watching one of nature's most spectacular daily performances from the best seats in the house, namely a slow-moving boat on the ancient world's most important river. The eastern bank shows signs of recent flood activity, with mud deposits and debris lines that mark the high water levels from the last inundation season. These flood markers tell the story of the Nile's annual gift to Egypt, the fertile silt and water that makes agriculture possible in an otherwise desert landscape. Farmers use these natural indicators to plan their planting schedules and adjust their irrigation systems for optimal crop yields. A small boy appears on the bank, tending a few goats that are taking advantage of the cooler evening temperature to graze on the green vegetation near the water's edge. He watches your boat pass with the alert curiosity of someone who doesn't see large cargo vessels every day, and waves enthusiastically when the crew acknowledges his presence with friendly gestures and called greetings. The sun drops noticeably lower now, touching the ridge of hills that marks the western boundary of the Nile Valley. The light becomes more horizontal, creating longer shadows and deeper contrasts that transform the familiar landscape into something magical and otherworldly. Every tree, building, and person along the riverbank becomes part of a vast natural art installation painted with golden light. A crocodile surfaces briefly near the far shore, just long enough to take a breath and survey its territory before disappearing again beneath the muddy water. The boat captain notes its presence with professional interest, but no particular concern, explaining that crocodiles in this area are well fed and generally uninterested in bothering boats, especially during the evening hours when they prefer to bask along the muddy banks.
The papyrus marshes along both banks become more active as various water birds begin their evening routines. Ducks paddle in out of the reed beds, herons take up fishing positions in the shallows, and somewhere in the distance the unmistakable honking of geese suggests that a large flock is settling in for the night in the safety of the dense vegetation. The boat passes a small farming village where people are gathering at the water's edge to watch the sunset, a daily ritual that never seems to lose its appeal. Children play in the shallow water while adults sit on mats and stools, sharing the day's news and enjoying the brief period of comfortable temperature between the heat of afternoon and the cool of night. Cooking smoke rises from the village hearths, creating vertical columns in the still evening air that gradually spread and dissipate as they rise higher. The smoke carries the sense of home cooking across the water, reminders of the domestic routines that continue regardless of the spectacular natural drama playing out in the sky above. The boat captain begins looking for a suitable mooring spot for the night, explaining that navigation after dark is possible but not particularly wise, especially with a cargo load that represents significant investment and several families' livelihood. Better to tie up at a safe location and resume the journey at first light when visibility and river conditions are optimal for safe travel.
A promising spot appears ahead, a small cove protected by overhanging trees where the water is deep enough for the boat but shallow enough to provide easy access to shore. Previous travelers have used this location, as evidenced by worn mooring posts and the remains of old cooking fires. The crew begins preparing for the evening's anchoring routine with practiced efficiency. The sun now sits directly on the western horizon, a perfect orange circle that appears to rest on the distant hills like a glowing ball balanced on the edge of the world. The sky above it burns with intense colors that range from deep red near the sun through orange and yellow to pale gold higher up, creating a gradient of warm light that seems to illuminate everything from within. As the boat approaches the chosen mooring spot, a small heron flies up from the shallows with a fish in its beak, apparently successful in its evening hunting efforts. It settles on a dead tree branch that extends over the water, adjusting its grip on its catch before tilting back its head to swallow the fish in one smooth motion that demonstrates millions of years of evolutionary refinement in fishing technique. The crew throws ropes to secure the boat to the mooring posts, their movements coordinated through long practice and mutual understanding. One man handles the steering oar to position the boat correctly, while another manages the anchor stone and rope system that will keep the vessel in place despite current and wind changes during the night hours. With the boat secured, the crew begins setting up for the evening meal and overnight stay. Mats are unrolled on the deck, cooking equipment is unpacked, and a small brazier is prepared for heating food and providing light after sunset. These routines are performed with the efficient calm of people who have spent countless nights sleeping on riverboats under Egyptian stars. The sun disappears behind the western hills, leaving only its reflected glow in the sky above and on the water surface. The air temperature begins to drop noticeably, bringing the first hint of the cool night that will follow. Along the riverbanks, evening insects begin their chirping chorus, adding a new layer of sound to the river's natural music. Stars become visible in the deepening sky, first a few of the brightest ones, then gradually more as the light continues to fade. The ancient Egyptians know these stars well, using them for navigation, calendar keeping, and religious observations that connect earthly activities to cosmic rhythms and divine will. A gentle breeze stirs the air, carrying the cooling scent of water and vegetation along with the more distant aromas of agricultural fields and human settlements. This evening wind is a daily blessing that provides relief from the day's heat and creates the perfect conditions for comfortable outdoor sleeping under the vast Egyptian sky. The boat rocks gently at its mooring, responding to the subtle movements of current and breeze with a motion that's both peaceful and soporific. The sound of water lapping quietly against the hull creates a natural lullaby that has helped countless travelers fall asleep on the Nile throughout the centuries. Fireflies begin to appear along the banks, tiny points of light that blink on and off among the vegetation like earthbound stars. Their soft illumination adds to the magical quality of the gathering dusk, creating a scene that seems to exist outside normal time, in a space where the ancient and eternal meet the immediate and personal. The crew shares the evening meal in companionable silence, occasionally commenting on the day's journey or tomorrow's planned route, but mostly content to enjoy the food and the peaceful atmosphere of evening on the river.
These men understand that some experiences are best appreciated without too much conversation. Night-flying birds begin to appear, their calls echoing across the water as they hunt for insects and small fish in the gathering darkness. Somewhere in the distance, the distinctive call of a night heron adds its voice to the growing chorus of nocturnal sounds that will continue throughout the night hours. The western sky gradually shifts from orange and red to deep purple and finally to the star-filled darkness of full night. The transition is so gradual and peaceful that it seems like the natural conclusion to a perfect day rather than an ending, more like the gentle completion of a cosmic cycle that will begin again tomorrow with sunrise and another day's journey down the eternal river. As you settle onto your sleeping mat on the boat deck, surrounded by the gentle sounds of water and wind and the soft conversations of the crew, there's a profound sense of being connected to something larger than individual human concerns. The Nile has carried travelers like you for thousands of years and will continue to do so long after your particular journey becomes just another memory carried by the eternal current. And the rhythm of the river becomes the rhythm of sleep, a gentle pulse that matches the slow beat of your heart and the deeper rhythms of breath and rest. Above you, the ancient stars wheel slowly across the sky in patterns that guided your ancestors and will guide your descendants through the same eternal cycles of day and night, season and flood, journey and rest. And in the morning, there will be sunrise on the water, breakfast shared with the crew, and another day's gentle progress down the river highway that connects all of Egypt in a network of trade, communication, and shared life. But for now, there is only the peaceful rocking of the boat, the soft sounds of water and wind, and the comfortable certainty that some things in this world are more enduring than human worries and more reliable than human plans. The gentle current continues its eternal flow toward the Mediterranean Sea, carrying away the day's heat and concerns while bringing the gift of another peaceful night on the river that has been Egypt's lifeline since the beginning of time, and will continue to flow long after the last cargo boat has made its final journey from the southern temples to the northern delta, bearing precious cargo and weary travelers toward destinations that wait patiently in the eternal rhythm of river time.
Welcome back to our journey through the most carefully orchestrated moments in ancient history. Tonight, we're trading construction dust and engineering calculations for golden lamplight and palace ceremonies as we step inside the pharaoh's palace during the most magical hour of the Egyptian day. From the precise timing of evening rituals to the gentle preparation of the royal household for night, this is the story of how an entire civilization's most sacred space settles into peaceful slumber while maintaining the divine order that keeps Egypt prosperous and secure. So, adjust your pillows, maybe light a candle for that warm golden glow, and let me know in the comments what's helping you wind down tonight, because we're about to spend the next 30 minutes in the most beautifully choreographed evening routine ever created. You wake from your afternoon rest as the head steward of the pharaoh's household, just as the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, painting the palace walls in shades of gold and amber that transform ordinary limestone into something magical. Welcome to your life in the royal palace of Memphis, circa 1323 BCE, where every moment of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's day is carefully orchestrated to maintain the cosmic balance that keeps the Nile flowing and Egypt thriving. The late afternoon air carries the mingled scents of frankincense from the temple courtyards, lotus blossoms from the palace pools, and the warm bread emerging from the royal kitchens. You stretch, feeling the familiar satisfaction that comes from managing a household where every detail reflects the divine nature of pharaonic power, and begin your evening inspection of the palace as it prepares for the sacred transition from day to night. The scale of the royal household is quietly overwhelming in its complexity. This isn't just a large house, it's a small city dedicated entirely to supporting one young man who happens to be the living embodiment of the god Horus on Earth. 300 rooms spread across multiple courtyards, each serving specific functions in the elaborate choreography of royal life, from intimate private chambers to vast halls designed for state ceremonies. But here's the thing nobody tells you about managing a pharaoh's palace. Everything has symbolic meaning, and getting the symbolism wrong isn't just embarrassing, it's potentially catastrophic for the entire kingdom. The way food is prepared, the order in which rooms are cleaned, the precise timing of lamp lighting ceremonies, all of these mundane details are sacred acts that maintain Egypt's connection to the divine forces that control the natural world. Your evening inspection begins in the pharaoh's private quarters, where servants are already preparing for the complex evening rituals that will transition the king from his public role as Egypt's ruler to his private role as a young man who still needs help with some of the more complicated aspects of being a living god. The pharaoh's bedchamber is a marvel of comfort and symbolic protection. The walls are covered with carefully painted scenes of the pharaoh's successful journey through the underworld, ensuring that his sleep will be peaceful and his dreams prophetic. The bed itself, carved from ebony and inlaid with gold, sits precisely aligned with cardinal directions to maintain proper cosmic orientation throughout the night. The bed linens are changed daily using fabric so fine it's almost transparent, woven from flax grown in sacred fields and blessed by temple priests before each use. The servants who handle these linens undergo purification rituals to ensure that no spiritual contamination reaches the pharaoh's sleeping form. The evening's clothing preparation involves selecting garments appropriate for the pharaoh's various evening activities, while maintaining the symbolic requirements of royal dress. Each piece of clothing, the pleated linen kilt, the golden collar, the ceremonial sandals, has specific meaning and must be presented in precise order by servants who have trained for years to perform these duties correctly. The royal wardrobe contains hundreds of garments, each stored in cedar chests with aromatic herbs to prevent insect damage and maintain the sacred purity required for royal clothing. The textile maintenance alone requires a staff of specialists who understand both practical preservation techniques and religious requirements for handling items that have touched the divine pharaoh's skin. Moving through the palace's interconnected courtyards, you observe the evening activities that transformed the royal residence from a center of government administration to a peaceful domestic space. Scribes are putting away their papyrus and reed pens, carefully storing the day's correspondence and official documents in organized archives that will preserve the records of pharaonic decisions for future generations. The scribal workshops maintain thousands of papyrus documents, from diplomatic correspondence with foreign kingdoms to detailed records of tax collection and religious offerings. Each document is carefully cataloged and stored according to complex filing systems that allow rapid retrieval when specific information is needed for royal decisions. The palace library contains scrolls dating back centuries, preserving the accumulated wisdom of Egyptian medicine, mathematics, engineering, and religious practice. Evening hours are often spent copying important texts to ensure their preservation, with skilled scribes working by oil lamp light to maintain Egypt's intellectual heritage. In the palace kitchens, the evening meal preparation follows elaborate protocols that ensure the pharaoh's food is both nutritionally appropriate and spiritually pure. Each ingredient is inspected by specialists who understand not just culinary techniques, but also the religious significance of different foods at different times of day. The royal menu changes according to lunar calendars and religious festivals, with certain foods reserved for specific ceremonial occasions and others forbidden during particular ritual periods. The kitchen staff includes priests who bless each meal and verify that all preparation follows sacred guidelines. Bread baking for the royal household requires the finest wheat ground fresh daily and sifted multiple times to achieve the pure white flour appropriate for pharaonic consumption. The ovens are blessed each morning and tended by bakers who maintain ritual purity throughout their work, ensuring that every loaf meets both culinary and spiritual standards. The palace breweries produce the light beer that serves as the primary beverage for most palace residents, using recipes perfected over generations and ingredients selected for their purity and symbolic appropriateness. The brewing process follows precise timing that aligns with religious calendars and ensures optimal quality.
Wine storage and serving requires understanding both the proper aging techniques for different grape varieties and the ceremonial requirements for serving wine at royal functions. The palace wine cellars contain vintages from Egypt's finest vineyards as well as imported wines from throughout the Mediterranean world. As evening deepens, the palace lighting ceremony begins, one of the most beautiful and precisely timed rituals of the royal household. Lamp lighters move through the palace in careful sequence, igniting oil lamps according to protocols that reflect the cosmic order and ensure proper illumination for evening activities. The lamps themselves are works of art, crafted from bronze and precious metals, with wicks made from specially prepared linen. The oil comes from sacred olive groves and is blessed before use to ensure that the light itself carries spiritual power that protects the pharaoh and his household throughout the night. The timing of lamp lighting follows astronomical observations that connect the palace's daily rhythms to the movements of stars and planets. This coordination between earthly activities and celestial events maintains Egypt's harmony with the cosmic forces that govern natural cycles. In the palace gardens, evening maintenance creates a peaceful environment for royal relaxation and contemplation. Gardeners work quietly to water plants, remove spent flowers, and adjust the irrigation channels that keep the gardens lush despite the desert climate surrounding the palace complex. The garden design incorporates both practical and symbolic elements, with plant selections that provide food, medicine, and spiritual significance. Lotus pools create cooling effects while providing the sacred flowers used in religious ceremonies, and fruit trees offer both nourishment and shade for outdoor royal activities. Water management for the palace gardens requires sophisticated engineering that channels Nile water through settling ponds and distribution systems that provide consistent irrigation throughout the growing season. The water features also create pleasant sounds that enhance the peaceful atmosphere of royal relaxation areas. The palace workshops continue specialized production work into the evening hours, creating the luxury goods and ceremonial objects that support royal life. Goldsmiths work by lamplight on jewelry and decorative items that will be used in tomorrow's ceremonies, while furniture makers put finishing touches on pieces designed to last for generations. The jewelry workshop produces not just decorative items, but also amulets and ceremonial objects that provide spiritual protection for the pharaoh and royal family. Each piece is crafted according to precise specifications that ensure proper symbolic function as well as artistic beauty, with gold and precious stones selected for their spiritual as well as material properties. Textile workshops produce the fine linens and decorative fabrics that furnish the royal apartments, working with imported materials and dyes that create the rich colors appropriate for pharaonic luxury. The weavers follow traditional patterns that carry symbolic meaning while achieving the quality standards required for items that will be used in the pharaoh's daily life. In the palace temples, evening prayers and offerings maintain the spiritual protection that keeps the royal household safe from malevolent forces. Palace priests perform rituals that have been conducted every evening for generations, ensuring continuity of divine favor and protection for Egypt's ruler. The palace offerings include food, flowers, and incense that must be prepared according to strict protocols and presented at precise times to maintain their effectiveness. The priests who perform these rituals undergo daily purification ceremonies to ensure their spiritual fitness for handling sacred objects and performing divine rituals. The palace musicians begin their evening performances, providing background music that creates an atmosphere of peace and refinement appropriate for royal relaxation. The music follows traditional forms that have been associated with pharaonic power for centuries, with instruments crafted specifically for palace use. Musical training for palace performers requires years of study, not just of technical skills, but also of the cultural and religious significance of different musical forms. The musicians must understand when different types of music are appropriate and how their performances contribute to the overall atmosphere of royal dignity. The palace security arrangements intensify during evening hours, with guards taking positions throughout the complex to ensure the pharaoh's safety during sleep. The guard rotation follows careful schedules that maintain constant protection while avoiding any disruption of the peaceful evening atmosphere. Security protocols include both physical protection and spiritual safeguards, with amulets and protective rituals that complement the human guard's vigilance. The combination of practical and magical protection reflects Egyptian understanding that threats to the pharaoh can come from both earthly and supernatural sources. As the pharaoh prepares for his evening meal, the dining ceremony unfolds with choreographed precision that transforms eating into a sacred act. Servants present each course according to protocols that reflect the cosmic order and ensure that the pharaoh's nourishment supports both his physical health and his spiritual connection to the divine forces he represents. The dining hall itself is arranged to create proper symbolic relationships between the pharaoh and the various elements of creation represented in the room's decoration. Wall paintings depict scenes of abundance and divine favor that reinforce the pharaoh's role as Egypt's channel for cosmic prosperity.
Table service involves specially trained servants who understand not just proper etiquette, but also the religious significance of different serving vessels and their appropriate use. Each bowl, cup, and serving plate has been crafted and blessed for royal use, with materials and decorations chosen for their spiritual as well as practical properties. The palace laundry operations work through evening hours to maintain the constant supply of clean linens required for royal comfort and ceremonial requirements. The washing, drying, and pressing techniques ensure that royal garments and household linens meet the exacting standards of cleanliness and appearance appropriate for pharaonic use. Perfume and cosmetic preparation involves specialists who create the scented oils and beauty products that maintain royal appearance and provide spiritual protection. The formulations follow ancient recipes that combine practical cosmetic effects with magical properties that enhance the pharaoh's divine radiance. As evening progresses toward night, the palace gradually settles into quieter rhythms that allow the pharaoh and household to prepare for sleep. The transition from active daytime governance to peaceful nighttime rest follows carefully planned protocols that ensure all necessary tasks are completed before the royal household retires. The pharaoh's personal servants begin the elaborate evening grooming rituals that prepare the king for sleep while maintaining his divine appearance. Hair care, skin treatments, and the application of protective oils follow procedures that have been refined over generations to ensure optimal results. Evening entertainment might include storytelling by palace historians who preserve the oral traditions of Egyptian mythology and royal genealogy, or performances by dancers whose movements recreate the cosmic dances that maintain universal harmony. These activities provide relaxation while reinforcing cultural values and religious understanding. The palace archives receive their final organization of the day, with important documents filed according to systems that ensure their preservation and accessibility. The record-keeping systems developed for the palace become models for administrative practices throughout the Egyptian government. Weather observation and recording happens each evening as palace astronomers track celestial movements and atmospheric conditions that might affect agricultural activities and religious ceremonies in the coming days. This information helps coordinate royal activities with natural cycles. The palace messenger system prepares for night operations, with couriers ready to carry urgent communications throughout Egypt if necessary. The communication network ensures that the pharaoh can respond quickly to emergencies or important developments anywhere in the kingdom, even during nighttime hours. Final security inspections verify that all protective measures are in place for the night hours, with both human guards and spiritual protections activated according to protocols designed to ensure royal safety during the vulnerable sleeping period. The pharaoh's palace animal care continues through evening hours, with attendants caring for the exotic pets and ceremonial animals that are part of royal life. These animals, including sacred cats and exotic birds, require specialized care that reflects their importance in Egyptian religious and cultural practices. As the final preparations for night are completed, the palace achieves a state of peaceful readiness that allows all residents to rest while maintaining the continuous vigilance required to protect and support the divine pharaoh. The pharaoh's final evening ritual involves personal prayers and meditation that connect him with the divine forces he represents on earth. These private moments allow the young king to prepare spiritually for the journey through sleep and ensure his readiness for the responsibilities of another day as Egypt's ruler. The gradual dimming of palace lights creates an atmosphere of growing tranquility that helps all household members transition naturally toward sleep. The lighting levels are carefully managed to provide necessary illumination while signaling the approaching time for rest. Night sounds in the palace create a peaceful audio environment that promotes relaxation while maintaining awareness of ongoing protective activities. The gentle sounds of fountain water, night birds, and distant guard movements provide reassurance without disrupting the growing atmosphere of restful quiet. The palace's connection to the natural world remains strong even during night hours, with gardens and water features that bring cooling breezes and natural scents into the living spaces. This integration with nature supports both physical comfort and spiritual connection to the natural forces that sustain Egyptian civilization. Temperature control throughout the palace uses architectural features and natural ventilation to maintain comfortable conditions for sleep despite the desert climate. The building design incorporates ancient Egyptian knowledge of cooling techniques that remain effective throughout warm nights. The final household activities focus on tomorrow's preparations, with servants quietly organizing the materials and supplies needed for the next day's royal activities. This advanced preparation ensures that morning routines can begin smoothly without disturbing the pharaoh's rest. Palace dreams and sleep are considered sacred experiences that connect the pharaoh with divine wisdom and prophetic visions that guide royal decisions. The sleeping environment is carefully arranged to promote the type of meaningful dreams that provide spiritual guidance for governing Egypt.
As the pharaoh finally settles into sleep, surrounded by layers of protection, both practical and spiritual, the entire palace maintains its quiet vigilance through the night hours, ensuring that Egypt's divine ruler rests peacefully while the kingdom continues under the watchful care of loyal servants and benevolent gods. Tonight, as you drift toward your own peaceful sleep, you can rest knowing that you've participated in one of history's most beautifully orchestrated evening routines, a daily ceremony that transformed the mundane activities of household management into sacred acts that maintained cosmic harmony. The gentle whisper of oil lamp flames mingles with the soft splash of fountain water and the distant call of night birds, creating a timeless lullaby that connects us across the millennia to the palace servants who understood that caring for a pharaoh meant caring for the divine connection that kept Egypt prosperous and peaceful. And in the sacred Egyptian night, illuminated by stars that guided pharaonic dreams and protected by prayers that have echoed through temple halls for thousands of years, we can rest knowing that some daily routines are so beautiful and meaningful they become eternal, creating peace through perfect preparation, one careful sacred detail at a time. The Golden Palace sleeps in eternal tranquility, its quiet corridors holding the secrets of ancient hospitality, divine service, and the timeless human desire to create environments so peaceful and perfect they seem to bridge the gap between earthly comfort and heavenly rest, leaving only the gentle echo of devoted servants who knew that true luxury lies in anticipating every need with loving care.